In this final video on Plato's Republic, we explore how all the great themes of the dialogue come together. The philosopher's search for knowledge, the allegory of the cave, and Plato's scathing critique of democracy. Plato's central question remains the same. What is justice, and how can it exist both in the soul and the state? But by this stage in the dialogue, that question has widened into something much larger. What kind of society allows wisdom to rule, and what happens when it doesn't? Let's start with the prejudice against the philosopher. Adimantus, Plato's other brother characterised in Republic, teases Socrates that philosophers are very odd birds, impractical dreamers who stare at the heavens while bumping into the furniture. Socrates concedes that this is how they are seen, but insists that the fault lies not with philosophy, but with a society that misunderstands what knowledge truly is. To explain, he offers the simile of the ship. Imagine a vessel whose captain is strong, but half deaf and half blind. The crew argue endlessly over who should steer, even though none of them knows the art of navigation. They flatter the captain, drug him, and seize control, turning the voyage into what Socrates calls a drunken pleasure cruise. Meanwhile, the true navigator, the philosopher, studies the stars, the winds, and the heavens, yet is dismissed as useless. For Plato, this is democracy in miniature. The ship is the state, the captain the people, and the crew the politicians. Each believes they know what is good for them, but none really does. Rule by opinion replaces rule by knowledge. We might pause to ask, is Plato being unfair, or is he pointing to something uncomfortably familiar, that politics often serves popularity rather than wisdom? This theme is taken further in the simile of the beast. Socrates asks us to picture a man in charge of a great and powerful animal. By observing its moods, he learns how to keep it tame, when to feed it, when to flatter it, and when to stay out of its way. But he never really knows what is good for it. He simply calls whatever pleases the beast good, and whatever angers it bad. In this image, the beast is the people, and the tamer is the democratic politician. The politician wins favour by satisfying the public's desires, tax cuts, easy pleasures, comforting illusions, but never asks whether those desires are good or bad. This, Plato says, is what democracy becomes. Rule by ignorance on all sides. Leaders are ignorant because they pander to the wishes of the electorate. The electorate are ignorant because they vote according to their appetite rather than reason. Democracy for Plato is not freedom guided by wisdom, but freedom without direction. The right, as he puts it, to do whatever one wants. And when everyone pursues their own desires, the result is chaos. At first glance, that may sound harsh. After all, democracy values equality and freedom, ideals we cherish. But Plato's warning is that freedom without knowledge quickly collapses into tyranny. When every appetite demands satisfaction, the strongest appetite soon takes control. This critique rests on a deeper psychological insight, the tripartite soul. Just as the city has three classes, rulers or guardians, auxiliaries and producers, so too the soul has three parts, reason, spirit and desire. In the just soul, reason governs spirit and desire. In the just city, the philosopher guardians rule the soldiers and workers. But in democracy, desire overpowers reason. The ruler becomes a slave to the people's whims, just as the individual becomes a slave to passion. The city that worships freedom ends up enslaved to its own appetites. And so, Plato traces the decline of regimes. The ideal state, aristocracy ruled by the wise, degenerates into timocracy, ruled by honour and ambition. From there, it slides into oligarchy, ruled by the wealthy, then into democracy, ruled by the many, and finally into tyranny, ruled by the one, the ultimate victory of lawless desire. Each regime, he says, mirrors a type of soul. The democratic soul, full of competing appetites, gives rise to the tyrannical soul, a person consumed by a single passion. In both cases, desire defeats reason. Plato's solution is radical. Only philosophers who grasp the form of the good can truly govern. The form of the good, he says, is the source of all truth and understanding, the light by which the mind sees. In the simile of the sun, he explains that just as the sun makes sight and growth possible in the visible world, the good makes knowledge and virtue possible in the intelligible world. Without it, we see only shadows, opinions mistaken for truth. This journey from shadow to light is dramatised in the allegory of the cave. The prisoners chained in darkness are ordinary citizens, mistaking images for reality. The philosopher is the one who breaks free, climbs into the sunlight, and beholds the truth. But when he returns to the cave, his eyes struggle to adjust, and the others mock him. For Plato, this is what happens when a philosopher enters public life. He sees what others cannot, yet his wisdom, because it challenges their comfort, is met with suspicion or hostility. Still, the philosopher must return to the cave because knowledge carries moral responsibility. To know the good is to be compelled to act for it. Plato's imagery invites reflection on our own politics. Are today's democracies, with their polls and sound bites, more like the ship's mutinous crew or the beast's tamer? Do our leaders pursue what is good, or merely what will please? Churchill once quipped that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others that have been tried. Plato would likely have agreed with half of that. For him, democracy may be preferable to tyranny, but it remains deeply unstable, a system forever at risk of devouring itself. We can test Plato's concerns against later thinkers. Kant, for example, would argue that freedom has value only when guided by reason and the moral law, not by impulse. John Stuart Mill, on the other hand, would defend liberty as a means to individual happiness and social progress. Both, in their different ways, echo Plato's conviction that true freedom is the freedom to choose what is good, not simply what one wants. By the end of the Republic, Plato's vision of justice has come full circle. The just soul and the just city are alike because both are governed by reason illuminated by the good. The philosopher, though often misunderstood, is the bridge between knowledge and governance, the one who can steer the ship, calm the beast, and, if necessary, walk back into the cave to lead others out. The journey from ignorance to wisdom, from darkness to light, is not just the path of the philosopher. It is the path of all who seek to live well. And that, for Plato, is the meaning of justice. Whether or not one finds Plato's vision of the city-state a realistic one, or agrees with the way he asks us to think about human nature and moral order, is something I shall leave to you. You may question whether his ideal of philosopher kings, or philosopher rulers, could ever exist outside theory, or whether his method of dialectical questioning truly captures the way human beings come to know and to live well. Yet even if we doubt his conclusions, the Republic continues to challenge us to examine the foundations of our own societies and to ask what kind of knowledge, what kind of justice, and what kind of life are really worth pursuing.